How we doing, everyone? Welcome to our second week here. This is our satisfaction and loyalty module, and let's get right into the questions. First of all, some general admin stuff. The more specific your question is, the better off I'm able to answer it. Now, a question like this that's sitting at the top of the screen: what is the overall size of the market and how to assess the overall size of the market? Well, the more specific you are with your questions, the better off I can answer them. In addition, it's easier for me to determine questions lining up with which articles if at the end of each article you have your nuggets and then you have your questions. Some of the groups still haven't done that, and sometimes I can guess where they go. Sometimes I cannot guess where they go. Just about this one, it really depends on what you define as the market. Do you want to define it as market share? Do you want to do it as overall revenue? Do you want to do it in terms of customer growth? The overall size of the market. You want to talk about it in terms of units? You decide what your metric is to assess the size of the market, and then you determine what the market is. For instance, until recently, Apple and iPhone was not, from a unit or market share perspective, anywhere even close to the top players in the industry. But when it came to profitability, guess what? They had 85% of all the profits for the entire marketplace. So what's more important, market share or margin? I don't know. It depends on what the priorities are with your customer, with your company. All right, let's get into the first article. The first article is a classic, and this is the second of two. And the first of the two, which I don't have as a required reading anymore, was referenced on page 91. In the top right corner, you'll see a 1990 reference, and it says Zero Defections, Quality Comes to Services by Frederick Reichheld and Earl Sasser. Well, Sasser's the author of this one. Reichheld is the author of our second article this week. So what was happening in the 1970s is after the U.S. firms were getting their butt kicked by foreign competition, particularly the Japanese, the U.S., got into this entire total quality management movement, TQM, and Baldrige and standardization and trying to improve quality. Well, out of this quality movement in the 1980s were satisfaction surveys. Well, after about 10 years of satisfaction surveys and 10 years of data, everybody kept saying, well, what's all this data really getting us? And I like to say, satisfaction is not enough. And I like to think about satisfaction as a measure of the past. Because if you look at satisfaction items and if you look at satisfaction surveys, they are in fact a measurement of a past experience. Well, so what if someone was satisfied or not satisfied about a past experience? It may or may not help you going forward, which is what this article and the second article and the third article all kind of get at this theme. So question number one, should companies limit the scale of a satisfaction survey? It seems like a 1 to 5 scale group, those at 4 satisfied and properly suggested the company was not at risk at losing a client. So let's take a look at this, and let me answer this in more detail. If we look at page 90, and we look at this little graph right here, where it says completely satisfied, dissatisfied, neutral, satisfied, and completely satisfied. It's a 5-point scale. If you notice, items 1, 2, and 3, with 3 being the middle, are less than 20% of all the responses. 80+% of the responses are a 4 or a 5. So instead of this being a normally distributed bell curve, with 3 being the largest of the 4 categories, it's skewed and it's skewed high, meaning the 4s and the 5s vastly outnumber everything else. Now, just so you know, and we could see more examples of this in the measures of loyalty on page 87 and page 80, no, it's 97 and page 98, where we look at interpreting the levels of satisfaction, a 5, a 3, a 4, a 2 versus a 1. You know, we really can only count on the 5s. Now, the question is asking on a 1 through 5, is this not a large enough scale? Should it be 1 through 10? Well, if you see in the second article, the same effect happens. There, instead of it just being a 5 are the ones you can count on, it's a 9 or a 10 are the ones that you can count on. And we've seen studies that looked at a scale between 1 and 100. And if the numbers weren't north of 90, then these weren't people that you could count on. It's something that, you know, most people think, oh, 4, they're satisfied. That's great. No, people who say 4, they switch. You know, that's something, that's a nugget. That's something you guys have to think about when you're looking at these studies at work. Can you identify mercenary customers early on in the acquisition stage to avoid the costly misstep of trying to attain them? To be honest with you, probably not. Maybe if you did some social media digging and you can see some of their history, perhaps. But usually someone turns into a mercenary. They don't start off as a mercenary. They start off as a loyal American Airlines customer, gets burned, and then becomes a mercenary. You know, more often the case, though, someone is trying United Airlines, and then their guitar gets smashed, and then they become a mercenary. Especially when the service recovery aspect is so poor by United Airlines. One of the greatest challenges, in my opinion, for a company is developing the measurement metrics to accurately gauge whether customers are completely satisfied with a product or service. Is this one of the greatest challenges? It is a challenge. I don't know if it's one of the greatest challenges. But, you know, I want you guys to start thinking of satisfaction is not enough. I'm not even a big fan of even measuring satisfaction anymore. Really. Going back to last week's articles on learning organizations. Love you for saying this, by the way, because every one of these modules fits together in some way, shape, or form. So don't think about these things independent of before. So I like this kind of comment. Do you think these types of learning companies have a greater advantage at achieving complete customer satisfaction? Well, I think these companies that are learning in the chain of loyalty, which we start with satisfaction, we get the loyalty, and then we have these loyalist apostles types categorizations. And we're going to see more articles that do more categorizations. So firms that learn and firms that are market oriented usually have an easier time identifying loyal customers and serving loyal customers. What companies are highly effective at attaining customer loyalty? The best of all best is Harley-Davidson. No ifs, ands, or buts. I actually took the Harley-Davidson article out this year. It was painful to do that. But Harley-Davidson, and when we see the brand article about icons, you're going to see how these unbelievable fanatical customer loyalty stuff happens. But Apple, Harley, Ritz, and it doesn't have to be all luxury brands either. Something as simple as Bic and Bic lighters, you know. A lot of loyalty there. How can we target the right customers? Well, targeting the right customers is a function of the goals of your firm. It may be the case that you do not want to do CRM. You do not want to have big fish and little fish and the 80-20 rule. And you may just want volume. You know, I went into the dollar store the other day. it still amazes me what is in the dollar store. The dollar store does not advertise. The dollar store does not do loyalty cards. The dollar store does not know your name. They're not targeting anyone, but they seem to be doing okay. You know, it depends on what's the goals of your firm, and then you decide who's the right customers. Is customer satisfaction survey the best method in understanding customer satisfaction? Is there another way? Yeah, loyalty. And we start seeing this in the back end of the Jones and Sasser article and in the second article. There's no question. Loyalty is way better. Will customers defect when they're totally satisfied? It could be the case that customers will defect when they're totally satisfied. Just because someone indicated that they were totally satisfied doesn't mean, you know something, I've been to Florida 3 times in a row now, I'm totally satisfied, I want to try something new. You know, loyalty is more of a proactive, pro-social measure. Loyalty, which we're going to get to the loyalty questions in a second. Well, I'll hold that for now. So how do you deal with it? You don't measure satisfaction, because satisfaction's not enough. You measure loyalty. Every customer is different. If you're in an environment where you have 1,000 customers worldwide, it's very different to cater to each customer to reach total satisfaction. What's your thoughts on this? Well, it depends on what business you're in. You know, for some people, we have 1,000 customers in each country, and we have 100 countries. You know, Apple in this last quarter sold their 1 billionth, that's billion, iOS devices. So that's iPods, iPads, and iPhones. A billion iOS devices. You know, one of the things where Apple keeps people locked in is, you know, all their software and their hardware sync with each other. You know, what I like to say is that the sandbox of Apple is easy to get trapped in. It's easy to get stuck. It's easy to enjoy because the phone, the computer, the iPad, the email, it kind of all works together in a certain way without you having to think about it too much. All right, next article. And this article had the absolute most number of questions. It's amazing what you guys did with this one. So let's get into them. What are some before we move on, there was something else. The concept in this satisfaction article of false loyalty, that's going to come up again in future articles. Make sure this loyal apostolist, defector, and terrorist is something that you keep in your head. And the idea of not evenly distributed. Here's an example that I drew from last year where the skew, you actually can't see it because I know people complained for me last year. But ask for me when we meet in person in February to draw this on the board. All right, this is a solid article. And it's a solid article which is a summary of a very large book. Because you read this article, you don't have to go buy the book. The article's good enough. I've actually used this metric in multiple studies. I think it's pretty solid. I think this is a fantastic nugget that you could go back to work with and say, you know something? The next time we're collecting data, let's add this item to it. It's very, very interesting. What are some of the ways in which companies track new customers that come in via recommendations to loyal customers? Well, before I answer this, just so you know, so this was 1990 and 1995, and by the end of the 90s, everybody knew that the satisfaction measures were just not enough. So towards the end of the 90s and in the early 2000s, we started switching to talking about nothing but loyalty. And this was one of the first major loyalty articles that everybody went, oh. What are some common ways companies track new customers that come in via recommendations from loyal customers? Well, this is kind of a little bit that we see in the third article. All right. But tracking new customers these days, you know, in order to use a social network, you have to sign up for an account. In order to get a loyalty card, you have to sign up for an account. I just joined a gym to try to get some of that fat tire from my belly gone in early January, and they have metrics on me. How how long I've been there, how many times I've checked in, what days of the week I've been there. So they're creating a profile of you, and hopefully they're going to find new ways to deliver value to you given your profile. They want to develop some kind of a CRM relationship. At what point does a company stop trying to please detractors? Is it too costly to try and retain dissatisfied customers? Well, it is very costly to try and retain dissatisfied customers. It really is. You might spend more money here than you would on trying to attract a new customer. And attracting new customers is expensive as it is. You know, you almost want these customers to fire themselves. So, how do you stop trying to appease the detractors? Well, in an 80-20 kind of world, if this is one of the big fish and one of the main revenue generating sources of your firm, then you have to do an awful lot to appease them. If they're not, then you don't. You go into a silent ignore kind of treatment and you see what happens. And if they switch and go to someone else, then okay. What is a good current example of a company that's doing a great job and also getting its customers enthused to recommend and champion its offerings and practices? Well, the list is pretty deep. I mean, Amazon's at the top of the list. Netflix is at the top of the list. Kroger, which is not a supermarket chain near here, Target, CVS, Walgreens. These companies are doing a very good job at learning from their customer base, learning about their customer base, and providing them offers specific to them. And the more specific the offers are, the more value the customer perceives, the more that they recommend and champion its products and services. You know, we do this all the time with our friends about movies and music and books and magazines and stuff like that. We're like, oh my God, I just saw blah, 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 blah. But when it comes to products and services, you know, think about the last time you were with a good friend of yours and your friend said, yo, you got to come with me. You're going to come to lunch with me at this place. It looks like a total dive, but the food is amazing. And someone takes you somewhere. Someone takes you shopping. Someone takes you to a new store. Someone buys you a gift from a place and all they do is rave about it. You know, that's cool stuff. Do initiatives such as loyalty and rewards programs generate enough sustainable additional incentive for customers to remain actively involved in consuming the particular product and services? Well, firms that are doing a good job of it, yes. There are some firms that the loyalty and reward programs, and we saw that in this article. You know, what did they call it? Lock-in, trapped. Actually, they don't. It's not this article. It's the third article. You know, for instance, if you guys use the Newark Airport a lot, you're flying Continental where you really want to or not. You know, it's trapped loyalty or forced loyalty. You know, I have Comcast. I have no choice. You know, so for some firms, the amount of miles that you have, you're flying American or you're flying US Air, whether you really want to fly them or not. You really want to fly Virgin, you really want to fly JetBlue, but you don't have, it can't get you to where you want to go. If the airport's not convenient, excuse me, and you don't go there. You know, we're going to see in the CRM articles that are coming up in the next 2 weeks, we're going to see a lot on loyalty and reward programs. How to craft them, good ones versus bad ones. But a loyalty, if you have a consumer, this is just something for you to think about, and this is what a lot of firms made a mistake when they started with social media. They started like when brands started creating Facebook pages and Twitter followings. These are your most loyal customers, and yet your entire social media offering is nothing more than giving your most loyal customers who already buy from you deeper discounts. I mean, why would you do that? These are loyal customers. They buy anyway. Why are you giving them coupons so they can get discounts? There's got to be something else you can offer, some other value add to this customer base. You know, that's a bad loyalty and rewards program. Just coupons, that's it. What is true customer loyalty? Does it only refer to customers who are willing to recommend a product or service to someone else? Well, in this article, the will recommend question, they were basing that upon tying it to future revenue growth. And the correlation is there. It's pretty solid. There is something about that will recommend measure. Now, is that true customer loyalty? Well, to me, customer loyalty is beyond satisfaction. Satisfaction is an antecedent or a precursor to loyalty. You need to be satisfied before you're loyal, because loyal really, in essence, means repeat purchase. So you need repeat purchase. You need pro-social behavior like positive word of mouth or bringing customers to a store, or you need pro-social word of mouth, like a will recommend type thing. If there's no pro-social and there's no repeat purchase, then there is no loyalty. Think about it that way. Customer loyalty is more than repurchase. Why the author examined repurchase behaviors along a scale. Did the author need to match survey responses from individual customers to repeat purchases and referral patterns separately in order to prove that repeat purchases has little correlation with companies' growth at first? Well, he wanted to make a case that you can't count on satisfaction. You can't necessarily count on repurchase alone. What can you count on? And that's the will recommend thing. The will recommend question sort of had a better results when we were trying to figure out growth that you could count on for future revenue. What are the difference between promoters and enthusiastic customers? On a scale of 1 to 10, a promoter is a 9 or a 10, and enthusiastic customers are an 8 or a 7. On a scale of 1 to 5, enthusiastic customers are a 4, promoters are a 5. You can't count on these. They could be switchers. They could be satisfied, but that doesn't mean they're pro-social. Promoters, these people are loyal. Truly loyal. What are target customers for a company, and how to define a target customer? This question is too broad. I don't know what a target customer is for a company. It depends on the company. It depends on the goals of the firm. As we know, repurchase sometimes is affected mainly by other factors rather than customer loyalty, such as forced loyalty or trap loyalty. We have no choice but to use Continental at Newark. Are totally satisfied customers more likely to recommend companies' products or services to someone else than satisfied customers? Yes. It is more likely, but given what we measure in satisfaction items don't talk about things such as recommend to other customers. If they are, it's not a satisfaction measure, it's a loyalty measure. Okay. Could satisfaction contribute to loyalty? Then loyalty could result in good profitability. Satisfaction is a precursor or an antecedent to loyalty. Usually you're satisfied, then you repurchase or you do pro-social behavior. And yes, that leads to more profitability for a firm. If the company told its customers that as long as the customers could invite someone else to the company, they would get some rewards. In this situation, willingness to recommend would not show the real experience of the customers in loyalty. How do we deal with this? Wow, what a good question. And we are going to see a toolkit article that actually puts this to the test directly in our next set of reasons. And this is by Professor Kumar, who's now down at Georgia State. And we're going to see the exact numbers and how this invite thing and the recommend thing and how profitable which group is with the other. So I'm going to pass on this for now and just call that a foreshadowing for the next week or two. Why are telephone and cable companies considered near monopolies when there are many companies that offer services? Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Boost. Would recommend should play a role in company growth. Well, the would recommend measure is better when there is not monopolistic competition. And you have to remember that this was in 2003 when this sucker was written, which means the data was collected in 2001 and 2002. And there was more near monopolies in these categories. So, don't worry about that as much. We have much more competition now, and when there is more competition and when the market is more fragmented, the would recommend measure is actually stronger. If detractors are so important, then why do we not take into consideration the lowest rated customers? The article says earlier that we should only pay attention to the highest rated customers for loyalty purposes. Business should be worried about the lowest rating customers as well, because they can be detractors. Well, yes, but the cost of converting a detractor to a customer or a loyalist is substantially higher than it is to maintain an existing customer relationship, or it is to get your loyal customers that are already buying and already buying frequently to buy more. You know, it's almost better to fire these people. If a company receives survey results where they receive 9 out of 10 people as detractors instead of promoters, wouldn't it be fair to say that the research into why it is unnecessary? Well, from a marketing perspective, yes. Take this question with this question. From a revenue standpoint, I don't believe in spending money to try to convert them. I believe in spending money to try to investigate, to do some digging, but not to convert. You're not going to convert them. You can learn from them, but you're not going to convert them. I understand how investing in the promoter is great, but are there more detractors? Shouldn't such things as price, quality, delivery, customer service, ease of access, be analyzed? Yeah. Shouldn't there be some investment in the reasons behind dissatisfaction? Well, yes. Why wouldn't a company want to gain more insight into how to gain more promoters? I see a company doing the marketing research on the entire spectrum of customers. I see the company spending more research on the promoters, and the promoters hopefully will provide lessons and value added that we can use for other customer groups. I think that's the easiest way to answer that one. We're going to see, I like how you guys are thinking about this in the last 4 questions in a row. When we get into our CRM topic, which the satisfaction loyalty conversation bleeds right into the CRM conversation, we're going to start talk about segmenting customer bases a lot more. It's almost the first step in every CRM program. So we'll decide how to segment, and based on that, we will decide how deep we go into the detractors, dissatisfied customer populations to what we want to do with them. I agree with the author that having loyal customers who promote your products helps a company a lot. However, don't you think that a smart, catchy marketing plus competitive price might mitigate that advantage? It depends. It's not just price, and it's not just catchy marketing. You know, we're going to see a lot of Super Bowl ads this weekend, and they're going to be great ads, and we're going to laugh and fall off the sofa, but that does not mean I'm going to buy more Oreos because Oreo did a good job. You know, Audi did a fantastic job last year at the Super Bowl. It helped them, but it's not like it moved the needle. It's more than smart, catchy marketing plans plus a competitive price. That's not enough. Could be the case that distribution and distribution alone is the most important of all the elements to make sure your product sells well and maintains market share. I like this net promoter stuff, though. It's very, very good. A couple other quick things in this article. On page 48, on the right-hand side, we get this concept of the bucket is leaky, or the leaky bucket, meaning you can't maintain and hold on to all your customers. Some of those customers will defect, drop out, switch. And in the second article, we call that customer churn. And some firms measure their churn ratio. So when every customer is a new customer, we're here on page 30, and we have this concept of churn and measuring turnover of customer. See, we wouldn't have had this churn or turnover customer conversation in 1985 if we were only thinking about satisfaction. We needed to move into the loyalty phase, and if we moved into loyalty and we start talking about CRM, this is a short article, but this is a very good article that sets us up for next week. The idea of turnover, the idea of churn. Like it. How can companies attract former alumni to expand their customer base? Well, if they can use alumni to promote in their behalf, then guess what? Seton Hall is primarily an East Coast school, but we have a strong Chicago and a strong Southern California alumni network. Well, we have the alumni go out and recruit for the university and do interviews for us. Is there a metric that complements the net turnover rate? Will potential entrants into a high turnover market need a break-even point or profitability to gauge whether to pursue a business or not? We are going to see an article in the next 2 weeks that actually does this specifically. And we're going to look at the churn rate. And it could be the case that you know what the churn rate is for your customer base at your firm. Sometimes you need to calculate it. For some firms, it might be 20. For some firms, it might be 10. But 10 might be a really bad number for that firm, and 20 might be a really good number for the other firm. You have to look at your industry averages, and you have to look at past history. It's like financial ratios. Financial ratios and isolations only mean so much. But when you compare them to both the industry and your direct competitors, they mean a whole lot more. For the net turnover rate, what is the cutoff number that separates high turnover market from a low turnover market? Is it 50% or some other figure? I think I just answered that question. It's a function of your firm history. It's a function of your comparison with the industry. Some industries have a much higher turnover market because there is less forced loyalty, like airlines, like some utilities. As much as you may or may not love Verizon or AT&T, you may be locked into a 2-year deal with them. Or you love your phone, but you hate your service carrier, but you keep the carrier because of the deal you got for your phone. Are there any other ways to maintain market positions or protect market position in a high customer turnover market? Well, you can buy them. You can pay them off. You can give them such incredible bonuses not to switch anywhere. But the best way to do it is really to find the magic value add. The more you can give a customer, the more you can tell them what's in it for them, the more loyal they will be. Therefore, reducing the turnover. What is Apple's net turnover, and their overall strategy towards customer turnover rates? Well, you know something? I have no idea what Apple's net turnover is because they don't share that information. In their earnings call on Tuesday, they were saying that they had the highest net switcher rate with Android that they've ever experienced. They did not tell us what the number was, but they said in the most recent quarter, when the iPhone 6 was released, they've had more people switch to Apple from Android than ever before. Apple does have some net turnover ratio. There are people that switch out, and for the last couple years, there were people that wanted a bigger phone than what Apple was offering, so they switched. High turnover rate or steady share, which is better? I'm not sure how. It probably depends on the firm and what the firm's goals are. But a high turnover rate is not a good thing. By default, steady market share is much preferred than high turnover and rapid growth, because you can have rapid growth, but think of AOL back in the day. They're the perfect leaky bucket company where they could care less about their existing customer base, so much so that they sent everyone another disc with 1,000 free hours. So what did we all do back in the day? Well, guess what? We signed up, burned through our hours, canceled our account, had another disc show up in the mail, and restarted our account, they always treated us as a new customer. They spent so much on attracting new customers because the bottom of their bucket wasn't leaky. It was like a faucet. And all they should have did was spend less money at putting people in the top of the bucket and spend more money trying to maintain the base in the bucket. They would have had a better business. Offering a gateway to the competition, how could we convince the customer our products are better than our competitors? Provide a low price? I don't think so. No, it's not price. It's value. It's what's in it for them. In most cases, low price is just a tease to get someone to try, but that's not someone to stay. This is my problem with Groupon. All these brands use Groupon, and all it does is increase volume, but it doesn't have anything to do with satisfaction or loyalty or retention. It's the anti-CRM strategy. Actually, Mac is more expensive than other PC brands. Mac has gained market share versus the PC industry for 34 out of the last 35 quarters. And this is when the entire PC industry is contracting in general. Shouldn't high turnover companies still worry about loyalty due to the fact that loyal customers would recommend their business or products? I sure hope so. To me, stopping the turnover and giving more to existing customers. I'd rather have a smaller, loyal customer base than have a larger customer base with super high turnover. Isn't monopoly and acquisition changing the game? They make it difficult for new competition to come in the market. It could, but many industries, particularly anything on the World Wide Web, anything that's Web 2.0 based, anything that's social or digital in nature, there is no monopoly. Other than Google Search, and Google Search, actually, Google just missed their earnings for the 5th quarter in a row. Search is starting to contract. Yikes. Like this article, this is a very good precursor for next week. Users of the world unite, challenges and opportunities of social media. We're going to see a couple articles from this Professor Kaplan this semester. I'd like to meet this individual, to be honest with you. I don't know them. And this was written in 2010, which means it was written in 2009. It's a little dated. But for a lot of us, this gives us a nice little overview of the social media world and the switch from a top-down to a bottom-up Web 2.0. Let's get some of these questions in. Users of the world unite. Are there any scholarly wikis that can be used as credible sources in research? There's a multitude of them, and the American Marketing Association maintains a bunch of them. But I'm 5 or 6 or 7 different LinkedIn groups where it's not a straight wiki, but it is in a wiki type mentality where they are very credible sources for marketing research. If you have specific needs or wants or anything, shoot me an email. I'll see what I can do for you. Does a one-size-fits-all social media strategy really work given the range and types of social media today? No, absolutely not. There is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to social. And, the customer bases are very fragmented and the platforms are different, and you really can't have a one-size-fits-all. Each platform tends to do something different. We may use 5 or 6 different social platforms, but our LinkedIn one is just nothing but for business. Our Facebook is one for nothing but social primarily. Twitter is for immediacy. I don't want to know what you guys are doing with Snapchat. Keep that to yourself. The sports industry is one example where franchises and organizations are creating and developing social media divisions. Agreed. I have a Seton Hall person. I have a former Dr. Dano student at the Devils, and I know of a Seton Hall person who's doing social for the Mets. Are there any other consumer-oriented firms, you should say market-oriented firms, also implementing such departments within their corporate structures? There's a ton of them. My gosh, I don't even know where to start. One of my former students just sent me an email She works for AXA Financial Services. She just joined them. She's in a division of 20 people, and this division of 20 people is just digital, and that's just digital people within the marketing department. There's 20 of them. It's a financial services firm. You know. Where do you find the most effective way to manage bad press presented on social or blogging? You don't, and you don't. This question was written in a Web 1.0 kind of a way, where you're the brand manager and you think you can manage the bad press. You can't. This is the Web 2.0 world where the crowd does whatever the crowd wants to do. So if there's bad press and you're afraid of bad press, then you shouldn't play in this Web 2.0 world. But in reality, really strong brands, really strong communities, if there's a bad actor in the community polices the bad actor. If there's bad press and you deserve it, you deserve it. You should fess up to it and own it, because you're going to get schooled on it. You can't hide it. If you deserve the bad press, guess what? But usually, if there's a bad actor in the community and you have a strong community, the community will react to the bad actor. Do you agree that being unprofessional and blending in with users is a given tip in the... Well, it's not being unprofessional. What they really meant to say is not traditional. You know, less Time Magazine and more blogging. More personal. It's not unprofessional. I think they just worded that wrong. Can you further explain the classification social media model from page 62? Alright, so this is what these guys wanted to do. So self-presentation is, and self-disclosure. How much information can you give up? You know, you can give up an awful lot in a blog. You could have high or low, right? Sometimes you have, so that's your self-presentation, how much you're able to disclose. You know, so there are situations where you disclose a lot, and there are situations where you don't disclose all that much. I mean, if you think about it, LinkedIn really reduces how much we can disclose. I am extremely thankful that I do not see millions and millions and millions of pictures on your vacation on LinkedIn. I really don't want to go there. That's not what LinkedIn is for. LinkedIn limits the amount you can do on LinkedIn. So the other axis is richness, media richness. So this right here is text. You know, how rich is that really? Well, it would be better if there was like a presentation and there was video and there was more depth and there was music. I mean, do you hear the Dr. Dano soundtrack going on right now? No. So how rich is this experience really? Yes, you're getting a video. Yes, you're seeing a text. Yes, this might be better than what some of your other professors do. But this is not a TED Talk, is it? You know, this is not an NPR type thing. This is not, I don't know, a webinar with music and multiple speakers and dynamic visuals. And so that's what media richness is. So based on how much you can disclose and present and how rich the media is, you know, for instance, World of Warcraft, you know, there's only so much you can disclose, like maybe your username and a few details. In Second Life, which Second Life still exists, it was actually a really big thing in 2007, 2008, 2009. Big thing meaning, you know, 1 million, 1.5 million people were doing it, which back then that meant a lot of people. But, you know, Second Life is hard to get the community to accept you. It's hard to start. It's really weird, you know. But you have a very rich environment. It's a 3D environment. You can talk. You can have sexual relations. You can buy and sell things. You can own property. It's a very, very rich media environment. You can create your own avatar and go to a place and have some other person someone else in Second Life. You could buy clothes basically to make yourself look however you want to look. Most people are not human in Second Life. You are some kind of an alien looking individual with rather large extremities. Let's leave it at that. No, I don't have a Second Life account. Can you further explain the classification of social media? I just did that. Do you think apps should ask us if a user would recommend the app instead of... No. This is a really annoying thing. And to the point where anytime someone recommends something if they're forcing you to recommend it, I won't recommend it. That is not a good measure. That is not a good measure. Asking for a review, no. Someone should do the review without you having to ask for it. Do you agree with all 10 pieces of advice for companies deciding to use social media? I don't think there's anything wrong with any of these 10. I mean, you know, the one unprofessional one in the back, you know, I get that. It's not really unprofessional. It's just being more personal. But I think, broadly speaking, these 10 things still hold going forward even to today. They are not the only things, but sure, these are 10 nuggets you can put in a journal and say, you know, you can benchmark against them for your social media stuff. What is the real relationship between Web 2.0 and marketing? Simple. Marketing is top-down. There's a brand manager, and the brand manager or the senior VP of marketing, and he or she decides everything. Maybe they do some marketing research. Maybe they have some data. Maybe there's some collaboration and some focus groups. The Web 2.0 is all bottom up, where the crowd really makes the decisions and makes most of the innovation happen. And the brand manager for whatever this Web 2.0 product is more of a ringleader, a collaborator, a moderator, not a general dictating all terms. You know, this is Procter & Gamble, and this is eBay. Really. For all intents and purposes. How do people make money on a virtual sites like Second Life? Well, they could sell ads, they can sell real estate, they can sell clothing, they can sell advice. There's lawyers. You sell products or services. You can absolutely sell. There's jewelry stores in Second Life. There's clothing stores in Second Life. I mean, for a while there, everybody thought it was going to be a virtual search engine, and you know, like there was a Nissan store, and there was a Scion store, and there was an Adidas store, and you could try on products, and based on what firm people were trying on Second Life, you know, Adidas was actually thinking, or Adidas, Converse, well, why don't we make that sneaker in real life? You know, some of that was happening. Except advertising, how does social media gain profit? Well, social media should be your main, you know, we talked about would recommend. Well, we're going to talk about affiliative links, where an affiliative link would, someone recommends something in a blog post, hey, read this book, you click the book, you go over to Amazon, you buy it, whoever made that recommendation gets a cut of that sale. It's called affiliative marketing. Please look it up. We are going to see articles later in the semester. It's a great topic talk thing. It's a great revenue generating source. It can't be your only one. But usually what happens is most social media firms is they use the social media to gain an audience, and then they figure out a way to monetize the audience. If you're only doing advertising, you're only going to go so far. Most of them create products or services, webinars, they sell books. A lot of them do conferences, and that's really how they gain and make money. Isn't virtual social worlds like Second Life and virtual game worlds similar? What is the difference except you have some avatar in a virtual world? Well, with Second Life, there's no goal. You know, there's no, you know, if we play World of Warcraft or we play, you know, any of the virtual games, there is some objective in the game and rules how to play. There's no objective in Second Life. It's a place to go and hang out and be social. and what you do. If you want to go to a concert, yes, you can go to a concert in Second Life. And artists created an avatar, and they would perform live in real life, and their avatar would, they would broadcast live in Second Life. But there's no goal in Second Life. It's just a social thing. I'm surprised the author did not mention LinkedIn. It still falls under social media classification, correct? Absolutely it does. I consider LinkedIn a professional networking site. It absolutely is. And LinkedIn is one of the most successful of all of them, not only from a growth standpoint, but from a revenue standpoint. LinkedIn makes a whole lot of money because less than a third of their revenue comes from advertising. They make a majority of their advertising from subscriptions. People pay to use the social network. Oh, isn't that novel? They sell ads, but usually getting a pro account, and LinkedIn is, they have unbelievable tools. Every so often I go buy one for like 3 months when I have to do research projects. There is nothing better in the world than freaking having that database, man. Really good. Okay, class, good job this week. Interesting set of articles. We have 2 weeks of CRM, and this is when, sometimes I think about starting the semester with CRM, but I really think we need the marketing management learning and the SAT loyalty conversation before we start talking about CRM. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. We will chat further. If there's any questions about this, you shoot me an email. Thanks.